Chapter 8.3 is what we're doing now. We're going to get into the next section because yesterday we did some Math Excel on 8.2. Hopefully you have 8.2 under control, 8.1 under control, because now we're moving on to 8.3. Again, this is A, which means the first of two lessons, because I'm trying to break it down into two parts so it's easier for you to kind of get there. Just keep in mind you still have to do some work. Although I try to make it smaller doses, you still have to do your job to make sure you digest whatever I'm giving you. Our last section focused on the ability to multiply a monomial by a polynomial. That was one term by a bunch of things. I told you it was just like the distributive property. Actually, I told you it was like the distributive property on steroids. And all that was necessary was to do the three things, which is what is the sign, what is the number, and then counting the variables. Today what we're going to do is multiply two binomials together. Bi meaning like bicycle means two terms by two terms. This process isn't difficult, but it does take some understanding of what's going on. And so what I've done for you a couple days ago, a few days ago, whatever, however many days, I've tried to give you situations to where you have what we call two friends meeting, or I think it was two business partners, but just general things that you understand in life. If you and a friend are at a mall somewhere and you already know each other and you bump into two people, and let's assume that you're both polite people and you decide to introduce yourselves, and you actually shake hands by introducing yourselves, which is what we used to do formally in the world. But anyway, if that happens, each of you are going to shake two hands. You don't need to shake your friend's hand because you already know them. What you're going to do is you're going to shake the first person's hand, and you're going to shake the second person's hand. And your friend is going to do the same thing. They're going to shake the first person's hand and the second person's hand. And so that's what the multiplying binomials works like. So as long as you understand what's going on, I don't think it should be something where it's tough. It's just going to be a matter, again, of you not being stubborn or lying to yourself and saying you can't remember or don't know how to do it. It's time to grow up. Let's make it happen. Here we're going to have Mike and Jenny, who are friends, meeting Sam and Ashley, who are friends. And so friends are grouped in parentheses. That's how I show that. That's how I remember that. These two already know each other. These two already know each other, which means what's going to happen is Mike is going to shake hands with Sam, and that's how I show it. Mike shakes hands with Sam, and, which always means plus, Mike is then going to shake hands with Ashley, and, which always means plus. Jenny is then going to shake hands with Sam, and, which means plus because we have one more. Jenny is going to shake hands with Ashley. Pardon my writing, I'm a terrible writer, but you get the idea. Mike shakes hands with Sam. Mike shakes hands with Ashley. Jenny shakes hands with Sam. Jenny shakes hands with Ashley. If I were you, I would write this attachment line every single time, because in this case there's going to be over attachments, which means go over for the first person, go under for the second person, and that way you'll actually see what your attachment should be. And for those of you who like to eventually take shortcuts, you won't need to write this part. You'll just kind of know, as you could look at this and say, Mike meets Sam, Mike meets Ashley, Jenny meets Sam, Jenny meets Ashley, and you'll be good enough to kind of do it without having the extra writing necessary. The process that we did represents the process that you're going to do anytime there's a group multiplying by a group. In other words, a group of friends meeting another group of friends to make it make sense. As long as you can list the meetings, then you can do fine. The most important part is recognizing when you do not need, or when you need to write out the actual meetings and not take a shortcut. Again, this depends on how much you practice. So for those of you who practice a lot, after about 3 days or so, you won't need to write them all. Or for those of you who are just good with numbers, you know who you are. And after a while, you don't need to write them all. But for those of you who are not good with numbers, and you know you don't practice, you might want to make sure you write them all out, because again, the point is not getting an F quickly. It's taking the quiz, doing it right, and even if it takes some time, making sure you get the highest grade you can, because if you know it, you might as well go ahead and get it on paper. So again, this is best learned through practice, so let's do it. Here we go. We have two people who know each other, 2x and 3, meeting two people who know each other, 3x and 5. Drawing the lines just like we did, 2x meets 3x, and, which means plus, 2x meets 5, and then 3 meets 3x, and 3 meets 5. So looking at this, that is your meetings. 2x meets 3x, 2x meets 5, 3 meets 3x, 3 meets 5. Now all we have to do is the same thing we did yesterday, which is to multiply these things out. There is no sign here, so it's positive. 2 times 3 is 6 with 2 x's. Then 2x and 5, looking at this one, no sign, but it is positive 10 with 1x. Here, no sign, but it is positive 9 with 1x. Here, positive 15. The last thing you have to be careful on with this is that there might be like terms because of all this going on. So you have here and here. Both of those are like terms, so we put 6x squared. 10 and 9 make 19x and 15. So again, make sure that you put your like terms together, because that is actually where you mess up more than anything else. The key thing here is to recognize again that you had 2x meet 3x, 2x meet 5, 3 meet 3x, 3 meet 5, and all we did was multiply each part. Looking at this one, you have 4x meet 2x. You have 4x, which means and 4x meets negative 7. Make sure you pay attention to the fact that is a negative 7. And, which means you have another handshake, you have 3 meet 2x, and, which means another handshake, plus 3 meet negative 7. As long as you can list those, you can get this right. It's positive 8 with 2 x's. This is going to be negative 4 times 7, 28 with 1x. This is going to be positive 3 times 2 is 6 with 1x. This is going to be negative 3 times 7, 21 with no x's. But again, at the end you have to look and say, is there any like terms? And they usually are right around here, with the easy ones at least. Tomorrow you'll see some more difficult ones, but here, so 8x squared has nothing to go with. Negative 28 positive 6 makes negative 22x, and then minus 21 comes down for the ride. And this is your final answer there. Okay? So as long as you know how to do the meetings, get that part down today. You might make some mistakes. That's why I always say it's trial and error. You learn one thing and then you mess up on something else. The next day you come back with 2 things known, you might mess up on the third. The next day you come back with 3 things learned, you might mess up on the fourth. That's just life. That's how it works. 3x, 5x, 3x minus 2, 5x plus 6. Again, you have people meeting each other. 3x meets 5x. And, which means plus. You have another handshake. 3x meets 6. You have another handshake, which means I need a plus, but be careful here because notice that this is a negative 2 meeting 5x, and which means another handshake. You have negative 2 meeting 6. Now you work this out. It's positive 15 because 3 times 5 with 2 x's. Here we have a positive number, so plus 3 times 6 is 18 with 1x. Here we have a negative number because it's 1 negative. 2 times 5 is 10 with 1x. Here we have a negative number. 2 times 6 is 12. And again, the last thing we do is combine any like terms. X and x can be put together. So 15x squared comes down plus 8x because that's positive 18 negative 10 minus 12. If you're having issues with the sign, just type it in the way it is. 18 plus negative 10. And your calculator will tell you it's 8. Just like on the last one, we had negative 28 plus 6, and it tells me right here that my answer is negative 22. So again, no excuse for missing any of this stuff. It's more a matter of pride than anything else, which is why I don't have any sympathy if you miss it, because I know that you can get it right. All of you are smart enough to do this stuff. You just have to want to actually do it. D, 4x meets 2x. And, because there's another handshake, put a plus. 4x meets negative 3. And, be careful here, negative 7 meets 2x. And negative 7 meets negative 3. I think I'm still on the screen. Yes, I am. From there, again, you just simply do each part slowly. 4 times 2 makes 8 with 2 x's. This answer is going to be negative because it's got one negative. 4 times 3 is 12 with 1 x. This part here is also going to be negative. 7 times 2 is 14 with 1 x. This part's going to be positive because it's two negatives, 21. Then you put your like terms together. 8x squared comes down. If you don't know what this is, do for yourself right now. Negative 12 plus negative 14, which is negative 26x, and then plus 21 gives you your final answer there. Two more before we get started. X meets x, and x meets 2. And, again, watch your sign, negative 2 meets x, and negative 2 meets 2. Multiplying this out, that's just x squared. This is positive 2x. This is negative 2x. These are easier compared to what you've seen, but this is kind of like a few of the questions you might see on the assessment this week. And then this is negative 4. There are such things as easy questions. Not everything has to be difficult. Just make sure you don't mess up on the easy ones. Again, putting your like terms together here, x squared comes down. But what happens when a positive 2 beats a negative 2 or meets a negative 2? 2 plus negative 2, you end up with 0, which means that these two things actually cancel out, and you get the answer of x squared minus 4. So the point of E was to make sure you understand that sometimes if that happens, you might have middle terms that cancel. You never know. And then the last one for the day. 4t meets 4t, and 4t meets 1, and 1 meets 4t, and 1 meets 1. From there, this is positive. 4 times 4 makes 16. T times t makes t squared. This is also positive. 4 times 1 makes 4 with 1t. This is also positive. 1 times 4 makes 4 with 1t. This is also positive, and 1 times 1 makes 1. Putting your like terms together, 16t squared, 4 and 4 this time make 8t, and then plus 1. And so that being what it is, go ahead and get to the worksheet today. Keep in mind, again, you want to get as far as you can. I don't care if you finish, but if you're just using that against me in terms of saying, since he's not going to check it, not going to collect it, I'm just going to do 1 or 2 questions and sit and talk. You might want to be careful, because at this point we are getting to the point where I will just go ahead and react to your lack of work, and that's not a positive reaction. So make sure you are at least working while you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Ask questions, work together, knock this out. Good luck.